Let me give you something I'm hot on right now. I do not think the American dream should be buying a home anymore.
What?
It's fucking bullshit. Yeah. It's a bad use of upfront capital.
What?
And it ties you up. Correct. And it's just not smart.
What? You guys led us to this.
It's not gonna appreciate.
And what is it for?
Oh, don't even get me started.
Like, I'm pissed that I own a home.
What?
I would literally rent in perpetuity now. And I will. Like, I've decided, like, I will never buy another new home.
What an idiot. Good. More for me and you.
What's going on, everyone? I'm Sean Herrero. I'm a mortgage advisor in California, and I wanted to break down Gary Vee's comments about home ownership. Now, that little beginning part, I just made that for fun. I hope you thought it was funny, but really, let's go through these comments one by one and really get a sense of whether it makes sense to buy or not. I don't think home ownership's for everyone. I think what Gary Vee ultimately was saying here is if you're starting a business and you have $200,000 and you either have to put it down on a home or you have to invest that $200,000 in a business, which could be a risky investment, which one's better for you? Gary Vee, obviously huge entrepreneur, multi-millionaire. If he wants to rent forever, go for it. There's not a better way to create passive wealth than through real estate. And that's proven year over year, time over time. Long story short, if I look at my grandparents who purchased a home in Cupertino in Silicon Valley for $45,000 in 1975, today that same home selling for over $2 million. All they did was make their mortgage payment. They turned their rent into a mortgage, they made their payment, and inflation created that appreciation. Now, we all go, I wish we could have bought a home for $45,000. A candy bar, same grandparents. Candy bar cost a nickel. I think everyone's heard their grandparents say, I remember when a candy bar was a nickel. Well, candy bars have not changed. A Three Musketeer is the same now as it was then, probably has more chemicals in it, but basically the same thing. And it's, what, $2 now? So something that costs a nickel now costs $2. That's inflation. Inflation drives appreciation, which is why so many people are making so much money through real estate. So getting back to the point, let's break down Gary's comments one by one and see if it makes sense for you to purchase a home. You decide after we're done.
Let me give you something I'm hot on right now. I do not think the American dream should be buying a home anymore. I think it's full of shit.
Tell me more of that shit.
It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a bad use of upfront capital, and it ties you up.
Correct.
And it's just not smart.
Okay, so the first thing he said was he doesn't believe homeownership is the American dream anymore. What I think he means is there's opportunities to make money on the internet. The internet's changed everything. That's kind of always his premise. So what he's saying is maybe there's two American dreams. Maybe you can build a business if you have that spirit as an entrepreneur and you're willing to take risk, because most startups do fail. We all love to look at the ones that don't, but maybe that's what you want to do. Or maybe you do want to invest in real estate. There's different American dreams. The beauty of America is whatever your dream is you can have it. He then goes on to say that it's bullshit and it's a waste of upfront capital. Now that I don't agree with, and I want to show you why. So let's jump into some data and I'll show you what I think of that comment. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take an idea, deep dive into Gary's idea. So let's just say we're renting right now in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, renting for $3,000 a month, which is probably a little low in a lot of areas, but let's just use that as an example. Let's say we wanted to buy a home for $650,000. So maybe what Gary meant is paying cash for a home, $650,000 price, maybe that's bad use of upfront capital. I would not disagree with that, and I'll show you why. Let's use the traditional 20% down number. If you put 20% down on a home, now you're only using $137,000 of upfront capital. You have another $500,000 working in your business, working in the markets, wherever it's at, but it's multitasking, right? You're earning appreciation in your home using someone else's money, and you've only used $137,000 of your own money to purchase. Far better idea than paying cash for a property. Now, let's take that one step further. What if we use just 5% down? Now I'm buying the same house for $650,000. I've only put $45,000 out of pocket. That means I have over $600,000, $610,000 working for me in the markets, in my business, wherever you want to invest that other money. So what does that do? Let's look at it short term. If we come over here to this tax benefit analysis, and by the way, if you want one of these for your situation, I'll build it out in a heartbeat. But if we come to more info, let's take a peek at what happens here. So renting in 3 years, just 3 years, I've spent $113,000 on rent. If I paid cash, I would have spent $27,000. That's basically taxes and insurance, but we've already decided that's not a great idea. If I bought with 20% down, my net cost is $74,000 compared to renting for $113,000. So you're saying, where does that come from? Well, I've paid $27,000 back to myself by paying down my mortgage, paying into the equity of my home. I've also picked up an $18,000 tax benefit between the state and federal tax benefits that are offered for mortgage interest and property tax deductions. So that nets me up to $74,000. If I bought with just 5% down, look at the difference. My net cost is only $10,000 more, but remember how much less I put down, right? I use far less upfront capital, kind of going with Gary's idea. So what happens after 3 years? After renting for 3 years, my rent has done nothing for me. If I paid cash, we already said that's a bad idea. You've made $100,000, but not that impressive. Where if you bought with 20% down, you've turned your initial investment of $137 into $259. So you've almost doubled your money in 3 years. Now, what's even more impressive is with 5% down on that same house, you turned $45,000 into $166,000 while you were using your other capital to invest in the market, to invest in your business, to do whatever you want. So that is why this may be a bad idea. Now, let's go a little deeper. Let's go 20 years out. If we go 20 years out, what happens? Renting, zero, right? Again, Gary said rent in perpetuity. He spent $1.2 million and it got him nothing. If I paid cash, I turned $650 into $1.7, and this is using a very modest appreciation rate of 3% annually. Now, let's get to the point. With just 5% down, I turned an initial $45,000 investment into $1.4 million just by converting my rent into a mortgage and owning my home. I don't understand Gary's points. That being said, let's get back to what he's saying.
Like, I'm pissed that I own a home. Yeah. I would literally rent in perpetuity now. And I will. Like, I've decided, like, I will never buy another new home.
Okay, so great. Gary Vee is going to rent in perpetuity forever. Well, think about that. He's saying not to buy real estate. If you don't buy real estate, who are you renting from? Somebody has to own the real estate. So now we all have the opportunity to buy real estate and be Gary Vee's landlord. And there's going to be a lot of people that hang on his every word and take this completely to heart. They're not going to apply the context that I think he actually meant by it. They're just going to say, Gary Vee said I should never buy a home. He's been right about so many other things, so I'm never going to buy a home. And I think that is bad advice. It's a bad interpretation of his comment. You really have to kind of understand who he is and where he's coming from to be able to make an educated decision. And I think ultimately that's what he wants. He wants us to think about what we're doing and does it make sense. So if everybody starts renting, you can be a landlord, purchase real estate, and then have somebody else rent from you and pay your mortgage. Think of all the Airbnb opportunities that there are, VRBO. People are making so much money with short-term rentals and long-term rentals while their asset appreciates over time. There's really very little risk in real estate if you're buying it in the right way.
Let me tell you the difference between a Lambo and owning your own home. I'm looking at some people here, we're all looking at each other, right? You just don't know if you own the home or not. Like, you don't have to know. Yeah. Like, I know you're driving a fucking Lambo. I see it. Yeah. But you live in a home. I actually have no fucking clue how much mortgage you have on that home. Do you rent it? Right?
So the difference between owning a Lambo and owning a home is you don't know if somebody owns the home or not. They could be renting. You don't know. Well, I don't know if you own that Lambo either. And again, I don't care. I don't see why he went off on this tangent. It has no application. And the best part is it's coming from a guy who is so humble in his attire. I've never seen him with a Gucci bag. I've never seen him with a Louis Vuitton belt. I've seen him with K-Swiss shoes because they're his. The dude wears jeans and a t-shirt, and he's going off on this clout nonsense about, I don't know. I mean, if you're gonna buy a Lambo over a house, you got bigger issues.
I gotta show you that I'm wearing fly fucking clouds and dirt, or a Gucci bag, or shit, or an Under Armour. Like, that's how we express. But on a home, I actually don't know if you own it or you rent it, and that's why it's vulnerable, because it actually doesn't matter to the outside person.
Owning a home doesn't matter because it doesn't matter to the outside person. So again, he's coming from this place of the only reason we buy anything is to show off. And I've never seen that from Gary Vee before. To me, he's so humble, doesn't overdress, keeps things really straightforward. Never seen him in a fancy car. Yeah, I've seen him in a private jet, but he needs that to travel. I just don't understand this part of the message.
And if you actually play it out, it means people are gonna live in much better homes. Because if you're not using all that upfront cash and you're just renting, you can go higher up, you're gonna be in a fancier place.
I don't get it. So now you should keep renting, but because you're renting and you didn't put upfront capital into owning something that is basically guaranteed to appreciate long term, He's like encouraging you to rent a more expensive home because it's going to look cooler to everyone else. I don't get it.
Why do you need to own a home?
What's the moral of the story here? The moral of the story is, I don't think Gary was right on this one. If you do agree with him and you want to rent forever, I know a lot of people that are going to be happy to take your money to rent a house for $10,000 a month because you want to show off. They'll take your 10 grand, they'll pay the $5,000 mortgage, they'll put the other 5,000 into their pocket, and then they'll watch it appreciate over time while you continue to rent. I don't agree. What I want to make sure is, before you make a decision of should I buy a home or should I rent, what do I want to do? Go through the details, go through the analysis, go through the numbers to see what makes sense. I truly believe it's possible to do both. You can own a home and stop paying someone else's mortgage and start investing your own wealth over time. And you can start a business if you want to start a business. But remember, Gary Vee has also said that being the number one guy at a startup is vulnerable, and being the 2, 3, or 4 person at a startup could be just as beneficial. He's getting away from his root message in a lot of this. And again, I don't think he really meant no one should ever buy a home. It's just impossible for a guy that is that smart to really truly believe that. Because again, I'm going to come back to this one more time. He said he'll rent in perpetuity. Who owns all the homes we're all supposed to be renting? That guy is laughing all the way to the bank. So let me know what you think. Comment below, like, subscribe. I'm going to do a lot more videos like this in the future. Again, goal is I want to make sure everyone's well educated so that they make proper decisions. Maybe buying a home isn't for you, but you won't know that based on Gary Vee's video. You have to do the research yourself and decide if it's the right moment in time for you to do that, if it's going to make sense. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.